Welcome to a special panel episode of Silicon Heartland Sessions. Today, we're diving deep into one of the hottest topics in the enterprise world, generative AI adoption and roadmaps. If you attended the December 2024 Cloud Nirvana conference, you'll recognize our incredible panelists. But if you couldn't make it, you're in for a treat. So joining me today are four brilliant leaders who have been on the front lines of AI transformation in their industries. First, we have Murali Sundararajan, EVP and CIO of Victoria's Secret. Murali,
Hello.
thanks for being here. Yeah. Swathi Jillella, Generative AI Technology Enablement Lead at Nationwide Insurance.
Hi, everyone.
Cam Avent, Senior Director of Analytics at Union Square Hospitality.
Thank you for hosting us, Sean.
My pleasure. And Michael Chorey, Senior Product Manager of AI and Innovation at Wendy's.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to continue the conversation from Cloud Nirvana.
Yes, me too. Yeah, thanks for being here. So each of you shared invaluable insights at Cloud Nirvana, and today we'll be digging deeper, sharing your key messages with our listeners and having some spirited discussions on areas where we may see things a little bit differently. So let's start by setting the stage. AI adoption in the enterprise isn't just about technology. It's about strategy, leadership, customer experience, and risk. And each of you have taken a unique approach to this challenge. We're going to explore your perspectives today. So starting with Murali. Murali, at Cloud Nirvana, you gave a fascinating talk about how Victoria's Secret is using AI to enhance customer experience from hyper-personalization to associate enablement. Could you share some of the key takeaways from your presentation?
Yes, definitely. I think, again, back to the hyper personalization, just to get the clarification for people who are listening. I always give the example of Netflix. So if you watch Netflix, you would have seen the movie specific to your profile, depending upon how you're raising your thumbs up, thumbs down. So Netflix can figure out your taste, and then all of them, it can able to curate your movies or your video specifically to your taste. I think that's what hyper personalization is. So it is not anything unique. So if you think about Amazon, does that all the time. So I think people talked about personalization. Now we are taking to the next level of hyper personalization. So if you think about in retail, it is specifically based upon your purchase behavior, your browse behavior, and what is interested to you in specific to your profile. I think that's what it happens. So coming back to the AI component, since the retailers have the data that we know the browse behavior of the customer or the purchase history, the intent is how you can able to help to curate those content specific to the customer that is relevant in that particular moment. Because in this fast-paced world, the customers are a little less patient to go through the list of products. Rather, they wanted to be given a choice in their particular time frame, and they could able to make the decision fast enough to add to the cart and complete the purchase. So when you think about all of them, what is going to be the fastest we can able to convert the customers and make the sale?
Makes
So
sense.
that's the reason every one of them is trying different approach. I think that's where the hyper personalization come into place, and we are in process of working through what does it mean to VS, and that's what we're working through right now. But as I always talk about, our primary goal is to improve customer experience and associate experience. And when we talk about associate, we always make sure that we do the right thing for our associates so that we can reduce their mundane work and then make them much more efficient and optimized.
Right. Makes sense. Hyper-personalization sounds powerful, but it also raises concerns about privacy and even ethical AI. Cam, your industry is also exploring personalization in hospitality. Do you see risks here, and should companies be more cautious?
Yeah, there's an age-old example I'm sure we've all heard ad nauseum of a retailer that was based on people's purchasing habits. This individual's purchasing habits. They knew that she was pregnant before she actually knew she was. Who even knows if that story is true? But I guess the fact is there's always some component of concern when you're messaging guests and you're talking to guests relative to what you want to say to them and what may or may not be true. So I think for our restaurants specifically, a place that we're trying to get to would be saying, "Hey, Sean, welcome back. How was your last? How was the rest of your wife's birthday? Imagine if we can show you um, bottles of wine from regions of France that we know you like based on past purchasing behavior. All of these things, which we'll get into later. But a concern would be imagine saying, Sean, welcome back. And you'd say, I've never been here before. Like just that critical mistake would change what would put the whole thing would be all for naught. Right. So
Right.
I think there's real concerns with making sure you're putting things in a way that don't actually flip the script and put you in a worse place because you got things wrong because of whatever your inputs or models were incorrect. Um, and then similarly, just like you were alluding to, there's always a concern with guest data and guest information and how are you using it in a way
Mm.
that, we think of this concept of in making sure things happen for someone, not to someone. So from a hospitality perspective, you want someone to say, man, that was in support of my ultimate kind of goal of what I want to achieve, whether it's at this dinner or what have you, versus that thing happened to me. And again, using personalization in the wrong way would definitely make people say, wow, that experience happened to me. Now,
Yeah. Yeah, well said. It sounds to me like there's a fine line between, leveraging AI to sort of help guide a customer through a shopping experience, all the different choices and everything that are available at companies like Victoria's Secret. But you can't, there's a line there where you don't want to do something that would cause your customer to feel like, hey, this they don't really know me, because really at the end of the day, that's I think from a customer experience perspective, we want our customers to feel like we care about you, we know you, we're here for you, and I could see the risks associated with leveraging AI that could potentially, cause some poor customer experiences. I would imagine, Michael, you've experienced some of those same challenges with what you've done at Wendy's.
Yeah. First and foremost, thank you again for having me.
My
I do
pleasure.
want to say you're getting Mike Chorey's perspective. I'm not speaking specifically for Wendy's, but I am proud to talk about the insights from my experience founding Fresh AI and leading innovation. So going back to the question around, um, the experience for Wendy's, it is all about the experience, um, uh, and protecting our customers and driving to a great experience. Wendy's has been a brand that pushes the industry forward. You'll hear me talk a lot about at Cloud Nirvana. We talked about the drive-through a lot.
Hmm.
Dave Thomas, our founder, created the modern drive-through that most of us are used to, that all
Yeah.
brands have followed us in. That innovation changed the industry. But we like to think about here at Wendy's is that, we're at a turning point, and I think lots of brands on this call are in the same spot. But when we started to explore AI, we didn't want to just remove that human voice and replace it with a robot out in the speaker box. That
Hmm.
substitution, and that's not what we're interested in. We wanted to really know how we could take this technology and make a better experience for our customers. And so that led us to our platform and the drive-through that we call Fresh AI. It's a co-innovation with Google Cloud. It's also the first generative AI drive-through agent in the QSR, quick service restaurant industry. So over the past 2 years, we've had millions of customers from grandmas to like my 5-year-old son that interact with this agent every single day.
Hmm.
And so we talk a lot about the AI and how it's good for our customers. For us, yes, there are efficiencies that we look at, but it's really about delivering an experience that feels natural, on brand, delivering a personalized experience in that moment. Meanwhile, it allows our crew to really focus on what matters, the guests. And so, as we talk through, like you'll hear a lot about me, is it's really about creating the right experience for our customer and crew and making sure that they leave feeling happy. And so we
Right. I like
saw,
that.
yeah. And so, I mean, we saw a bold opportunity. We took a leap to make sure we truly impact that experience. Along the way, we had to figure out a lot. This journey was, we started this journey very early on when LLMs became the rage. And so, in the early days, we had to figure out things and we made, very smart tactical decisions along the way, but we made some bold decisions to help us learn quickly so we could bring this experience to our customers and crew.
That's fascinating. Swathi, I kind of want to get your perspective here. With all this talk about hyper personalization and leveraging artificial intelligence to enhance the customer experience, I know Nationwide is thinking, or seems to me Nationwide is thinking of AI a little bit differently. Do you see hyper personalization, customer experience, and so forth as overhyped, or do you see a future for this in financial services and insurance?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me, Sean. It's great to be here. So, from nationwide perspective, we deal with insurance and finance. Personalization is a little different. We think about like it's about meeting customers where they are. So we are helping them prepare for life events. Just like Cam was mentioning about some pregnant lady. So we do care about that, and we want to be supportive these are the insurance and finance and some of the things that are not on top of your mind. These are coming after the fact. So how can we reach this customer and provide you the correct coverage needs right when your life situation changes? And so it's very important to us, but we also are very um, careful about the level of stability and trust that we can provide
Right.
to our customers, and how in what ways we can be supportive. We don't want to miss the opportunity to truly serve our customers in moments that matter. So the real value is in proactive, personalized services like immediate guidance after an accident, or timely reminders about new policy options and things like that. We don't want to leave the benefits on the table, but we do take cautious steps in moving forward.
Makes a lot of sense. And, a lot of, I think, what goes into some of these decisions, and what makes artificial intelligence and the solutions that are in this ecosystem so interesting, in particular in the enterprise, is those decisions that we make are very much driven by a whole bunch of different factors. Your risk tolerance, your how important customer experience is to you, and things like that. And there's a bit of a debate on buy versus build in this arena. Murali, Victoria's Secret is partnering with Google for AI, and Michael, Wendy's. I know you've been embedding AI into operations, taking more of a hybrid approach. What's your perspective on buy versus build, and the unique approach that you're taking with artificial intelligence?
When you think about buy versus build, you know, I think we fall in the middle. And so Wendy's, with the right timing of when we decided to go down this path, LLMs, it was right before the big ChatGPT explosion and popularity, and everyone rushing to try to figure out how to leverage that technology. Um, we started a path with traditional AI, using it in the drive-through, and we quickly realized that wasn't the right path for us.
Right.
It would have taken too long. We wouldn't have been nimble enough, and we wouldn't have created the right experience for our customers and crews. And so, myself, in a conversation with a fellow Googler, we said, hey, LLMs are really good at understanding people. Like, what if it could take an order? And so that started, our journey. And at that point, there were no products to buy. And so we went down a journey through a co innovation partnership where we basically co built a new platform that is called Food AI from Google Cloud.
Hmm.
So other brands in the future could go buy this product. We had to co-innovate it with them, and it was a pretty difficult journey. I mean, people aren't talking about ordering food on the internet all day, every day. So we had to spend time really making sure that that agent could really understand the context of what it was doing in the drive-through.
Right.
And so we had to, help provide that context to the LLMs to allow them to be great at taking orders. So that was a journey that we went through, to help co-innovate and build a platform with a partner that ultimately turned into something that others could buy in the future.
And was you providing that context to the LLM? Is that, are you talking about processes that you'd go through to actually train your own models, or is this more of like a fine tuning thing?
Yeah, no, I think there's two approaches, or two things that I would say to answer your question. One, LLMs are really good at understanding language. we don't have to spend time teaching it what a hamburger is. Now, we had to spend time giving it recordings and insights to, the context of ordering a hamburger. But really what it allowed us to do was take the base LLM from Google, and we really taught it how to be a great Wendy's employee. And so that helped us save time. So we taught it about the brand. We taught it about what is the right experience and what's not. And so that was the journey we went down to be able to um, to leverage the agents versus just a traditional AI technology.
Right.
John, one thing I would clarify is buy versus build. It's a general conversation or concept.
Hmm.
The way I always think about it is you start with the data, wherever the data is. Right? If you have most of the data that you
Yeah.
have inside your enterprise, and that's what is going to provide insight, and then you build the model on top of the data where it exists.
Right.
Or as a retailer, if you're buying a package, it means you are going to send the data to that particular package, wherever the package is hosted in your data center or used as a SaaS. It means the data is going to be with them. It means they may be using the AI model as part of the package.
Right.
So I think that's how I think about it as a retailer. It's a buy versus build. Specific to AI is the core is where the data is. If the majority of the data sits in your enterprise, you build your own model. But again, to Michael's point, LLM is different. I think I am using Google's core platform LLM.
Hmm.
Again, depending upon where the data is, the decision is: do I need to build my model on top of the platform that Google provides, or do I just use the third-party vendor to leverage their AI model? So
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, go for it,
Um,
Ken.
yeah, I think there's an interesting dynamic here with a representative from both big and small companies, and I think being
Yeah.
the guy that's probably from a slightly smaller organization than the other three, the buy versus this discussion is really interesting, and we fall kind of probably on the given our size, we tend and smaller companies tend to fall probably closer to the buy
Agree.
bucket just because when
Hmm.
we have the kind of discussions to say, well, the things that we weigh are the value of getting more customized insights versus the cost associated with building. And as small organizations that have smaller teams, typically that cost and then the support associated is a bit bigger. So we have to skew to like, all right, what are the out of box solutions that involve minimal kind of support and technical support on our end? And so I think for the smaller organizations, you end up kind of skewing a little bit closer to buying more things than you build. But that doesn't mean the way we think about or we would scoping our partners, then figuring out, okay, here's the problems we want to solve. How do we maybe transform the problems, or how do we fit the problems into the out of the box solutions to find
Yeah.
ways to still answer them without having to then require a custom build to answer that specific problem?
Makes sense. Do you think that with DeepSeek being in the news recently, does this and all the hype around it, do you think that this represents maybe a a milestone in our AI journey, and we're getting closer to being able to allowing the average person, the average company, the average smaller company who maybe doesn't have $100 billion to build a large language model to actually go out and build their own models? Or do you think it's hype?
I'm probably not the most qualified on
And
DeepSeek specifically. I think there's a lot of details all of us would kind of like to learn a little bit more about. I think everyone in
yeah,
the U.S. wants to learn a little bit more about those details or could scrutinize them. But I think the value of it is, I think, opening people's eyes to like we've been going down a route one way, and that says, hey, maybe there's an alternative route that gets us closer to
right.
no matter where they end up. I think hopefully it gives the idea, or at least puts the pressure on competition to make
Oh
it
yeah.
more accessible. Murali, what do you think? I feel like you're pretty well adept at this type of stuff. What are your thoughts there?
I think what you said is 100% correct, because this is the evolution, right? We had seen this multiple times. When the Unix was there, you started having a lot of Linux coming up, because I would say this is a healthy competition for the industry to become more, reduce the monopolization of the platform, because there was only one OpenAI, and then you saw the Llama came up, and then you have Meta came up, and then you have Amazon built their own, and then you have Tesla built their own. I think each and every one of them, to your point, everybody was trying to see how they can able to leverage.
Hmm.
biggest one everybody was assuming GPU from NVIDIA is the biggest one everybody needs. So this one's shaking the whole market right now, right? It means the
Yeah.
people are going to come up again, as you said, none of us know what the answer is. Again, nobody knows what the answer is. But now, as a consumer, you get a choice. So to your point, if I don't have to go for pay a lot of money and I don't have to use the huge power of the Gen AI or the GPU capacity, I want to be cost effective. Earlier, you did not have a choice. Now you have a choice, something like DeepSeek. I'm like, okay, there's an option, right? So because of this, then maybe another third party may come up with the another cheaper version. So people have a choice to say, if I need to build a Ferrari, I need a huge engine, then I need to go for a bigger LLM and more stability. Or if
Hmm.
I need a smaller vehicle, I just need a scooter to go as a two-wheeler, then can I just go use the smaller open source to get my job done? The options are going to open up more and more for the consumer to make the decision rather than somebody else making decision for you. I think it's a healthy competition. It has to come. I
Right.
think it has to come that so the industry will evolve. So.
Well said. Swati, did you have something?
Can I chime
Hmm.
in? Yeah, I think so. There are. I'm just loving what's happening in the world in general with the launch of DeepSeek, but I think it opens up a lot of opportunities, right?
Hmm.
So it is like, of course, we started with buy versus build, but if it's an open source model and it's safe for you to use it, can you use it on your local machine and like reduce your costs,
Right.
like and because the infrastructure is going to change so much, and laptops will be built with these GPUs in build, and you are probably running that model locally and getting a lot of use out of it, and then productionize it or like train it to get to your data sets. There
Hmm.
is so many other opportunities that it presents than what's existing today. I think that's the best part of this new model that arrived, and the reasoning capabilities are improving, and that is the best part. Again, like today what we are dealing with, as we are looking in the last 2 years,
Well said.
we are unable to realize it fully because of some reasoning capabilities, and as they are growing and we are getting it for much cheaper, then the use of AI, I think it will only increase the use of AI in multiple
Agree.
different ways.
Well said.
I just one more thing. I want to add one thing too.
Please.
You mentioned like opportunity. It's very exciting this time. Whether to me, it's each model has its own characteristics. Their own quirks, things that they're good at, things that they aren't good at. But I really like, as we're talking about this, I'm reflecting on the journey that I've been on for the past 2 years, 2.5 years. And I remember early on, like when we first started working with Google, they had no idea. We didn't know how to expose the agent outside of the environment for Wendy's to use. There were so many questions and things that we didn't know 2 years ago. And being
Right.
able to go through this journey and you tackle all of those things one by one has been very exciting. And to see, going from, outside of ChatGPT, there were very few, agents or LLMs that you could go engage with. Now you have model gardens, you have all these different options in front of you. It makes me think a lot like from back in my early career when I was in retail and mobile just became a huge thing. We were experimenting with like what was the right way to navigate on a phone. Well,
Hmm.
today, the hamburger icon is like the go-to icon on mobile.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing a lot of that here in this space. Options that are coming out to be, fit for purpose and what they need to do. And it's a very exciting time. I'm sure we haven't seen anything yet. So.
Well said. Well said. The way I think about it is that the very building blocks by which we go about solving problems is changing. So I agree with you. It feels like the early days of the internet to me. You know. Um, Murali, before we move on, is there anything that you wish people understood about AI in retail that they might often get wrong?
Okay, I'll always say it's not specific to retail. I think everybody assumes AI is something that you can go buy and just put it on your system and make it work. It's always starts with the data. If your data is not
Yeah.
correct, AI does not have a new intelligence on its own to make your data correct. I'm like,
Yeah.
so you have to keep your data, and then if your data is not correct, work on it first before you jump onto the journey. So that's always the one I talk about. every time when you talk about AI, it has to be in conjunction with the data.
Yeah. It certainly is elevating the need within the enterprise and now the importance or the need for data governance and data quality. Yeah.
Data quality is the key.
Yeah.
Data quality is the key. Garbage in, garbage out.
There you go. There you go.
The other thing that I think is important, data foundation, bullet number one, 100%.
Yeah.
You got to know your business too. So if you
Hmm.
don't know how your organization, stocks things or how you actually sell hamburgers in the drive-through, you're not going to be able to teach your agent how to do it. You're going to have to
Well
spend
said.
time figuring that out. And so, I mean, that's an interesting part of the journey is like you need to ensure that you know where you're starting, what you're going to do. That will help save you time. If not, you're going to have to go through that process to ensure that you actually know how the business has been running for years or decades. And so that you need to keep that in mind.
Well said. Swathi, Nationwide's approach to AI has been, incredibly structured with a focus on governance and responsible adoption. Can you walk us through your AI journey and the lessons you've learned along the way?
Yeah, for sure. So when we talk about AI governance and risk, we often focus on compliance, regulatory adherence, responsible AI adoption, and rightly so. And within our businesses like insurance and finance, we are for us trust is everything. We can't afford AI that hallucinates a policy clause or miscalculates like customer's risk profile or anything. So
Yeah.
we see like governance for us is not just about what we can do. It's about how we can enable innovation responsibly. So we look at it different applications require different levels of oversight. So we take a layered approach. So we see for customer facing AI, strict standards apply. We ensure accuracy, fairness, explainability, and regulatory compliance exists, and we have like strict guidelines and governance
Hmm.
policies and in place. For associate productivity, we are also an organization where we are taking advantage of AI as for productivity and accelerate our work. With that, we want to provide tools that to make information accessible, to make you faster and accelerate in your day-to-day work and help associates make better decisions. So then we apply a little bit different lens when we are bringing in those tools for day-to-day work rather than like a business application. And then we also have emerging technologies
Hmm.
lens, like where we are working through figuring out agentic AI and other technologies. Then we want to foster experimentation. Then we want to see what's feasible today, and then we are charting a responsible path to production. So it's critical that we keep a lens of um, not all use cases are the same. So neither should be our governance model. So that's our like it's not one size fits all, and right sizing the controls is our approach
Yeah.
towards governance. So we have been like from structure wise, we have been thinking about like centralized center of excellence where we have like a single place where we formulate the guidelines, the compliance frameworks, and provide the advisory support. And then we have how can we enable the business units and provide the tools, the pre-approved tools and platforms for them to get started with their AI journey and get some traction on the work using AI.
Right. I love what you said. I even wrote this down. So trust is everything. And governance is about how we can enable innovation responsibly. I love that because when we generally talk about governance, we pick images of bureaucracy and so forth coming to mind, and all the reasons why we can't do something. But to your point, it sounds to me like the approach you're taking is when you have the right guardrails in place, that's when innovation can then flourish, because we know the rules of the road. We know the playing field that we're working on. So obviously it's about balancing innovation with governance. I'm curious. So Michael, you've had to balance innovation with risk as well. Do you think that enterprises are too cautious, or is this level of governance necessary?
I think governance is really important. Fresh AI started as basically a small startup inside of Wendy's. We had a few members, working to understand, could we do this? And but through that entire journey, we thought about the governance, the safety for our customers and our crew. And I'm lucky to have an amazing, group of partners internally that lead, privacy and legal and governance and compliance. And we didn't avoid them. We worked with them from the very beginning because we knew, just like within the digital applications or mobile apps, there are needs of compliance and safety that we've been having to meet for years.
Hmm.
And so we realized from the beginning, like, let's just start there with this. And I think somebody said it, provides you guardrails or guidance, and that's what we did from the beginning, so we wouldn't have a surprise down the line. Now, when you think about like regulations and compliance needs external of the organization, one, I wish there was more consistency, but that
Yeah.
team working together, we've built a framework that balances the risk versus the potential benefit for our crew and our customers and for the organization. And so, but lastly, like to that point, like I talked about how we started as a small startup and we've worked now. Wendy's Fresh AI is in nearly 100 locations. I think we're in over 20 states by now. And it's important to understand, like, being bold is an important factor as well.
Hmm.
We come to these types of events, or I talk to a lot of different professionals within the industry, and you'll hear them talk about how, like, I'm working on how I can save time on this one workflow that maybe saves capacity from a couple people in the office. It probably makes a huge impact to them, but from a brand perspective, you need to look at what is going to lead that innovation for your brand. You don't have
Right.
time to think about those small things. So, like, we decided to, to be bold, but yet we were really focused. And when I say bold, I don't mean reckless. It means asking the right questions. What are the right problems to solve?
Yeah.
And we ensure that the AI enhanced that experience for us. And it's been the guiding point for us to bring the right human touch out of the overall experience.
Right. Murali, what about you and over at Victoria's Secret? How do you balance out, the sometimes competing priorities of innovation versus risk and governance?
I think, as Michael said, I think keep your partners in loop. I think we have privacy, the legal, cybersecurity. They are all part of the same team to evaluate what the use cases are. What do we need to be concerned about? What do we need to be careful about? So I think,
Right.
again, at the same time, your point was very valid. I think the governance is critical with no bureaucracy. It means that people need to feel empowered. At the same time, people need to be educated to say, here is the risk for the business. Here is the one we just need to be all aware of.
Right.
In this current road, there are a lot of unknowns. There is no prescriptive decision can be done. So you have to have a bigger sense to say, okay, every step that you take, ask the question to say, are you seeing something that you should not be seeing? Is there
Mm,
something that we all need to be aware of, careful about? So
well said.
I think the encouragement is always we recommend do the prototype, evaluate, run through the business, look at the use cases, give the opportunity for everybody to see through their lens,
Hmm.
then ask the question, and then keep making progress. Again, we're not looking for perfection, because if you look for perfection, in my opinion, it never happens. So, but at the same time, with your point, be cautious. The thing, because there are a
Right.
lot of things going to be unknown. Take a baby step, but continue to make progress. So,
Well said. Cam, I'm curious, in hospitality, customer experience obviously is everything. Do you think that Nationwide's approach would work in your industry, or do you feel that AI governance slows things down?
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement here, which is great, which is mainly that what it feels like is when you think about doing it fast or doing it right, we're all kind of indexing a lot closer to doing it right, at
Hmm.
least right now.
Well
And
said.
that's definitely our approach as well. Um, the benefit of the restaurant industry, it's a bit behind the technology curve in a lot of ways. There's a lot of fine dining restaurants in New York that still take reservations via a book. So you walk in, they have it, they plot out tables, and they're managing everything that way. And I'm sure it works for them. But uh, I say that because we think of it of like we always want to be at the front of the curve. But at the same time, I think this goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the concerns of customization and doing personalization in a way that detracts from an experience. Again, we really want to focus on building the guardrails and building the procedures and processes in a way that again enable us to do it right the first time. So
Well said. Yeah, thank you, Cam. Swathi, you had mentioned during Cloud Nirvana, you had mentioned using AI agents as a future focus in Nationwide, and I'm actually curious, Michael, do you see AI agents transforming your industry as well?
They already have. I mean, I think Wendy's is a prime example. We have now across all of our pilots. I said we're at nearly 100. We're opening new pilot or new fresh AI restaurants every week. And so the thing that I would say is that you go to those restaurants, you're going to get a consistent on brand experience every single time. It's going to be friendly. It frees up our crew members to really focus on the customer at the window, making sure that their made to order food comes out exactly how they want it, and to ensure that that customer leaves with a smile. And to be fair, like the rest of the industry is looking at us and they understand the opportunity here. So so we've started there, but like that's just the beginning. The one thing that I would also say is it unlocks information. The drive-through makes up 70 to 80% of our business. And before Fresh AI, we honestly didn't know a ton about what happens there outside of our observations, the teams that go look at restaurants, our customer insights surveys and tests, and data we get from the POS and other mechanisms. But we didn't really understand it to the level of like our mobile app. Well, now with Fresh AI, it's fundamentally a digital channel, and all of that information is allowing us to understand what's happening there better. We can optimize that experience to make it, the truly natural and personalized experience that our customers deserve, not just a place where they go get some food really quick. We're being very thoughtful about it now. And I think that information, we talked about data being important to start, the data that comes out of it also revolutionized and allows us to ask questions that we probably never would have been able to think about before.
Swathi, coming back to Nationwide, before we wrap up, you know, if an enterprise is just starting its AI journey and kind of thinking about this entire conversation as a backdrop, the challenges with large enterprises, the importance of data quality and data governance, the concepts around hyper personalization and so forth, and all of the ambiguity and everything around artificial intelligence. If an enterprise, a large enterprise, is just starting out its AI journey, what's the single most important thing that they need to get right from day one?
I think understanding their data and security principles
Yeah.
would be the most important thing. So don't go for there is lots happening in the AI, so don't go for the hype. So understand the value that AI brings for your business and understand your data and the security and legal guardrails. And if you have a framework, I think that would speed up everything else, and it's all matter of execution after that. So I would say focus on data and understanding the risk of data and who the audience are for that particular application.
Well said. Thank you. So, Cam, you're leading AI initiatives in an industry that's known for its human touch. At Cloud Nirvana, you shared how AI is transforming the guest experience at Union Square Hospitality. What were the key messages from your talk?
yeah, if we start here, I what I think is interesting is if you really boil down AI and Gen AI, what it really does it just helps people get to better decisions faster. So, Sean, whether that's you're in Chat GPT saying, "Hey, I have some shallots and some shiitake mushrooms. What should I make tonight?" Um, or you're wondering, you're asking questions about the best route to go from A to B. Whatever it is, it's helping people get information quicker so they can make decisions quicker. So now if I think about the impact that data analytics and effective reporting can have on organizations, that's really meant to enable people to make the right decisions using data and insights in addition to everything they see, hear, look, and feel about the business. So I say those two examples because both of them, you see the through line to both of those is decision making and improving decision making. So from our perspective, a great place that we wanted to start with generative AI is how do we blend those two and use generative AI in the reporting process to enable our operations leaders to understand the books better, understand the upcoming day better, to understand the guests better, which then enable them to make the best decisions to run the
Hmm.
restaurant. In the best way in that night. So an example would be, I was kind of alluding to it earlier, Sean, with saying, hey, if Sean were to walk in, wouldn't it be nice if a GM had a list of every guest that walked in that just could say, okay, here's the last time Sean came. I could then go out and query some of your ordering data from past visits to say, here's the types of food and beverage Sean typically likes to eat and drink when he's here. Here's some things he said about his server last time that should lead us to say we should put him with this person or not. So we can take all these other data points that we have about Sean, put them together in a really clean and easy to digest story so our operators know how to tailor your experience for you. And so I say that because that operator is going to have to decide where to put you no matter what. That server is going to have to decide what kind of beverage to offer you either way. So why don't we just make that decision making better and faster by saying, here's the things you need to think about when interacting with this guest. So
Right.
that was the main kind of focus. And I think you could apply that kind of logic. And again, that idea of how do we enable people to get to better decisions faster in a lot of other areas.
Well said. So, AI powered personalization in retail, Murali, Michael, sounds similar to what Cam is doing in hospitality. What would you say is like the biggest difference in the approach that you're taking?
I don't think it's a difference. I think even when Cam you presented in the Cloud Nirvana, the one I loved is the way you talked about storytelling, right? I think it's not getting the data. You can get the same data what you talked about right now. You can give the bullet points to the server or the manager, but rather you took one more extra step and provide them as a story point so that it feels more natural when you're having a conversation with the guest. I think that's what makes the personalization more experiential. It's not personalization for the sake of personalization, right?
Right.
I think that's the reason, even if you hear what Michael is talking about for Wendy, is it is focused on experience. It's not just to understand who you're talking to, it's making them feel that you are making their current processes special for them, more memorable for them, whether you are browsing, whether you're coming through an app or drive through it through Wendy's. That is going to be unique experience for them and it need to be memorable. I
Right.
think if you can able to touch people's heart in a way that is going to be resonating to them and it's going to be relevant that particular moment, you win the customer. I think that's what everybody is trying to achieve, and you can call them with different names, personalization, hyper personalization. But at the end of the day, if you can touch the customer's heart in the need, in the moment, you win them.
Well
Wherever they
said.
are, where they are. I think that's the key. I think that's the one I think I heard from you, Cam. It's like very, very clear and it's like crystal clear. Consolidating the data, providing the insights to the person in a right way, and it feels natural to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Cam, I actually was talking about your talk and the work that you're doing like yesterday with
Wow,
some
love that.
folks internally. And within an enterprise organization, we all have dashboards, we have different looks and views. And the story is, I think, the key. And it was very exciting. It was, what you showed was simple but extremely powerful. And I think the same thing applies to everything that we're talking about is how do I take that information, provide it in a way that's helpful? You think about personalization or hyper personalization or targeting. or however you want to call it. I think this time period we're in with this technology is very exciting. It makes me again think back to the early days of retail and applications like loyalty and the way we've always done loyalty and personalization. I think that's going to change.
Hmm.
Because in the past, where you would buy something or put something in your cart and you get a recommendation, like it is a personalization of the experience for you, where you are, when you are in that moment in time, and allowing the technology to do the work to come to you and make it a great experience. And my space in the QSR, selling hamburgers, you're there for, the ordering point is, a couple dozen seconds. It's very short. The overall experience is a few minutes at most. We get the gift of being a part of your day. And so when you think about like the work we're doing and the experience that we're creating, it's our responsibility to make that a great experience. You don't want to leave Wendy's or any of our brands thinking about, man, that tech was amazing, or wow, that was a really rough experience. You just want to go home and experience the thing that you bought, the
Right.
clothes, the experience with the agent, or for us, the amazing, great Wendy's food. That's the thing. If I did a good job, that's the thing our customers are thinking about all the time.
Well said. Wendy's also uses AI to streamline operations as well. We've been talking a lot about customer experience and so forth. But I'm curious, do you see parallels between what Cam's doing from a operations perspective and and Wendy's automation strategy?
100%. We talk about the work that we're doing, and it's all about how do I elevate and uplift our employees. And I'm talking very broadly now. Our crew members is where I've been mostly focused, and we're doing a ton of things there for them, but also our operators, our franchisees, and internal and across the organization, giving them the right information to help them make the decision or help guide them to maybe what is the best decision in that situation. Whether it's midnight or rush on a Friday night.
Right.
They don't necessarily have the time to take in all of the data points. And I think it's our job to, again, like how I talked about being there for our customers, it's our job to be there for our crews to help them have a better experience.
Hmm.
And so that's, we're taking the same concepts about our customer facing technology and bringing it to our internal technology as well. How do I tell the right story to help our members do the right thing, which ultimately, again, creates the right experience for our customers? And so I'm 100% in agreement. That obviously I was talking about, the things that you were doing just the other day with folks internally about how this path is the right path to be on. And when it comes to storytelling and presenting the information in a helpful way that allows people to be better at their jobs. I don't know about you guys, but when I can be better at my job, I generally feel better. I love going to work. And so I think it's exciting to be able to enable that for an incredible amount of people within at least my organization.
Yeah. I like what you're saying about enhancing the associate experience, the employee experience. I think that's a concept that doesn't really get as much airtime as it probably should. Probably because we're too busy having the argument or worrying about AI taking jobs.
Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of inside insights. Like I said, we've had generative AI in the drive-through for nearly 2 years. And so that means our crew members have been interacting with it for that amount of time. One thing I'm really proud is from day one, like I lived in a restaurant and my team, we lived in a restaurant every single day. We talked to the crews, we talked to customers, we spent time observing. Some of us like learned how to actually be crew members because it helped us build empathy and understand their experience. And that's why we've built the product that I'm so proud about, is because the crew members were part of it from day one.
Wow.
And so as you think about the experience, like, but you go to a lot of restaurants and that don't have AI, you're not a Wendy's. Um, Sometimes they're ordering and they're multitasking and doing other things. You come up to the window and they give
Hmm.
you food, but they're also like taking an order. Like the crew members don't enjoy that either. And so, like with Fresh AI and the work that we've been doing, it allows them the space to actually, like, they all actually want to make a very good experience for the customer. That's the one thing that I found so amazing in my time in restaurants is how much the crews like actually care about the experience for the customers. I'm sure it's the
Wow.
same way for Victoria's Secrets or all of our restaurants. And now we, I can actually tell you by watching, is they have that space. And so like if I were to ask any of our restaurants, do you want me to take the agent away? The answer is going to be no, because it actually helps them be better at what they want to do.
Well said. Well said. Cam, before we pivot, is what's one thing that you'd say hospitality leaders need to know before they invest in AI?
Yeah, so the way I think about it, and I would probably be speaking a little bit more to the smaller hospitality type groups that are wondering, like, what am I, how do I do this? Or what am I supposed to do? I think the one thing to think about is just pick a problem and try to get really good at solving that. And
Hmm.
now it's interesting though, Michael, because you had given a different type of example, and I think both are true. Meaning, hey, we need to be bold. You all kind of said we need to be bold with Fresh AI, and I think 100% you're absolutely right. You need to move the big rocks first. But I also think there's a component of like, again, can't we have both mentality of like, but if you're like, I don't know what to do, where do I even start? Like, just pick a problem and say like, I'm going to go solve this just to get comfortable with the concept of like,
Get it
what
moving.
is this
Yeah.
technology? So an example would be one of our operations leaders came to us and said, I've been trying to figure out, can we create schedules with ChatGPT? And we're like, we absolutely can. While we did some kind of mass data, then just test out the concept on fake data. The point, and it was very successful. The point is, if that was a one unit restaurant owner and you say, I wonder if it can do this, just go try to start solving that problem, because you're going to learn something either way, and your journey has started, versus sitting back on the sidelines and saying, I've heard about all this stuff, but I don't even know what to do. Like, where do I begin?
Right.
I definitely think it's both.
Yeah, I
I
think the
know
other
from our perspective, I said be bold, but like we started there because we knew a lot about where our opportunities were and our legacy, and so that's where we started. But that was a calculated decision to start there. And the other thing I would mention that you just really made me think of is like we and Wendy's is an enterprise organization, but we're built. I get the benefit of being able to wear this red coat because of our franchisees, and we have franchisees owners that are, they have one location to pretty large organizations,
Mhm.
and so I think that for all of us, what you reinforced about the importance of the small organization is actually a really important view to have when you tackle this space. Even if you are picking that big bold decision, is it's got to make sense. You don't have all of the resources in the world. You've got to make sure that if you're going to spend this time and energy, yes, I talk about experience, but it also has to be beneficial for the organization. They have to be able to afford it. And that's a key part that, we've thought a lot about through our journey, but like for everyone listening, I think is super important to remember too.
I think the only thing I would add is what Cam said is start the journey at the same time be open to detour. Because you're going to learn something and then you may have to pivot. So I think as long as you have the openness to pivot, continue to make progress, that's the key. So
Yeah, and I think what happens is you start the process, and then pretty quickly you get comfortable with it, and then you're like, okay, let's go build our version of Fresh AI. So I think it's like,
Yeah.
just get your feet wet, and pretty quickly you'll say like, all right, now that understand this, let's then come up with all the different ideas and really pick those big rock movers.
Right. Well said. Thank you, Cam. So, Michael, I'm really dying to hear more about the Wendy's journey. Wendy's has just been a trailblazer in AI driven innovation. Can you walk us through how AI is transforming your customer experience, and maybe a bit about the journey along the way, given the backdrop of the conversation we've just had?
Yeah, I think I've alluded to some of it through this
Yeah.
conversation, but the one thing that we did a little bit different early on was we kind of decided to start a little small company inside of Wendy's.
Right.
There were a few of us. Literally in the early days, we would have our prototype device that we would all come over to my house in the garage and work on it. We may have chose our very first pilot site for Wendy's that was down the street from my house because I figured I'd spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
But in those early days, like, that prototype device, we duct taped a microphone to the side because we wanted to know how the customers would perceive it and how they would engage with it. Those early days, like, we'd spend the night at a restaurant, climbing up into the ceiling, moving cables, trying to figure out how to even get an agent to come through the speaker box by working on the audio system. But we did that because it allowed us to work really fast. But over time, we learned more and we brought in the right people. I think earlier we talked about, bureaucracy and other items. One of the things I'm really proud about our journey internally is we have such deep partnerships. This is a Wendy's effort. It's not an IT effort. Everyone in Wendy's has come behind the Fresh AI journey to bring the right insights to make sure that we're successful. So over time, we went to our first restaurant and launched, and we've slowly worked to more restaurants. And the whole journey's been about getting feedback. There's been very interesting things that have happened, very exciting things, but it's been a very thoughtful path. I will say also, a lot of stuff happened along the way that made us pivot, made us rethink through things. And I think you talked about being a trailblazer. That's part of the responsibility, I guess, that we have by working so far in the future.
Mhm.
And also coming and doing things like this, sharing what we've learned, I think is super important. But where we're at now, like we're in the scale phase. We believe in what we're doing. And I think that it really speaks to, in the early days, can AI do this? And I think coming down to where we're at in our journey, the answer is yes. People have been ordering from Wendy's for 2 years, and now we know how to do. We talked about hallucinations at one point. That's like a fairly solved problem. Like,
Mhm.
we know generally what causes hallucinations, and we've been able to adapt to them. You probably never going to not have them, but we're really confident and have mitigated that risk. So that's kind of a little bit about the Wendy's journey. We started small and we've worked our way through with ensuring that we justify our ability to deserve to exist within the Wendy's organization.
Yeah. I work like Swathi. I work in a highly regulated industry. I'm in the insurance industry as well. And when we started our AI journey, there's a lot of conversation about, do we tackle use cases with AI that would impact the policyholder or impact our independent agents and so forth. And we've taken a very risk adverse approach. Swathi, I would imagine it's a similar story on your side as well. And my next question really is for you. When you think about how Wendy's has approached artificial intelligence and just diving right into the customer experience, putting this technology right in the hands of their customers, how do you think about balancing the necessity of governance with the desire to move quickly? And do you see the wheels of innovation speeding up in the insurance industry, or do you think that we're going to continue to have to take a very, very risk adverse approach?
I think, as I was hearing Michael's story, our nationwide story is similar, though we have not ventured into like customer-facing application with generative
Yeah.
AI. We have been having a lot of AI in our products, from like 10 years ago. And that is, we have a process in place already for the governance, so that helped in a way, but we had to reinvent that. So we were looking at a lens of, okay, this has come, and how can we include that in our day-to-day work and in our business use cases in a safe way. I think that's the approach that we have taken, and we have not and one of the things that we have started with is human in the loop.
Mm,
So we said, all the use cases, until we figure this out completely, everything has to follow human in the loop.
right.
That way there is a human eyes, and before something is going out either to the customer, even to the associate. So it's kind of, you have to look at the answer and then make a decision whether you want to use that output from the AI or you want to defer it to the
Right.
human. So good. So governance, like there is, of course, we often hear governance slows AI down, but I would say like bad governance slows AI down.
There you go.
You always like good governance creates confidence, like trust and ability to scale AI faster.
I
So the
I love how you keep on bringing this back to the opportunity. You know what I mean? I love the positive spin that you put on it. It's very inspiring.
that's what happens when you're in innovation. You want to see it, like you're curious to explore, you want to explore things, and you don't want any barriers to hold you down, so you're trying to work around the problem and see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right. Well said.
So yeah,
So Cam,
that's the approach Nationwide has been taking as well, so it's great
yeah,
time.
excellent. Cam, Michael's approach in fast food relies heavily on automation. Could AI, in your mind, ever replace human hospitality in fine dining?
Yeah, I don't believe so, because if we think about it this way, what we were just saying earlier, if AI is one use of it is getting people to the decision quicker. So if one theory, or the way I guess we would all think about it, is if you can save people time to get to decisions quicker, you're then enabling them to be additive to the overall guest experience. So I don't ever see a world in which the number of people you're using gets reduced because of AI. I think their ability to execute at a higher level and create better and better guest experience is what's really going to be impacted. Plus, ultimately, I think everyone can agree. It's that age-old concept of sometimes you just want to talk to someone. Like when you're in a restaurant, like you're sitting down, it's your anniversary dinner, you just want to converse with someone to say, what kind of wine do you think I should drink tonight? There's just some component of that people enjoy.
Well said, man. I mean, at the end of the day, there's some, you can't replace the human touch, and we as a society are going to have to figure out where we want to draw that line between what we want to automate, what it makes sense to automate, and where the human touch kind of begins.
So you said replacing hospitality through automation, and I think that any brand that goes down that path is probably doesn't have a very bright future.
Right.
For us, like using Fresh AI in the drive-through is all about like leaning back into our core values of who we are, Wendy's kind of people, and enabling that hospitality. If AI took away from that, there's no way we would have ever have gone down this path. And I think that goes for all of us. That's the thing that makes me the most excited in this work. I remember the first day sitting in a restaurant and watching crew members and realizing that it actually was allowing them to be more friendly, to create a great experience for that customer at the pickup window. That's like when I got most excited during this journey. And like the ordering point, it's very transactional, whether it's from a human or an AI. And so, at least with the AI, it's very consistent, on brand, and can feel more natural, and it frees up that great experience at the window.
Love it. So it's an enhancing capability, not a replacement. Yeah. Well said. So, Michael, as we wrap up, I'm just curious, what's the biggest misconception about AI in the QSR industry that you'd like to debunk?
So I've done a handful of talks over the past couple of years, and there's always this moment of like, what is Wendy's doing here, and why are they using AI? Like, it's just the drive-through. I
Yeah.
can tell you, like, it's very complex. When you think about the classic Dave's Double Burger, it has over 200 billion different ways that you can configure that. Removing or adding cheese or tomato. But then you also take in the nuances of how people ask for things, like without the pickle, remove the pickle. I don't want the pickle, none of the green stuff. You take into account regional nuances. At the end of the day, like America is a melting pot, and the right thing is to make sure that you can account for all of them. And so that's why we leaned into Gen AI from the very beginning. Traditional rule and flow based agents like out there, you'd have to account for all of that. And with
Every permutation.
right, any brand would spend all of their time and money trying to make that happen.
Yeah.
And so with Wendy's, I talked about this earlier, we don't have to worry about all those combinations now. The AI understands what a burger is, and we can spend more time how to make it a great Wendy's employee, a great partner to our crew. And so when I talk about that, that's where people like it, they usually dawns on them that that is pretty difficult. And so the last thing I'd say is like for me, I order the same thing every single time, and I think a lot of us tend to do that.
Yeah.
And that's where I think you get that simplification view, but it is very difficult. And I know that Fresh AI can do all 200 billion of those combinations for the Dave Double.
But what happens when I order peanut butter on my cheeseburger?
Just like a normal crew member, she'll tell you that's not, an option available in a very friendly way.
Nice.
But maybe that's data that is interesting. Enough people ask for that. Maybe it's something you'll see in the future.
Sounds delicious. Well, hey, everybody, this has really been an incredible conversation. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We've been talking here for over an hour. I just want to thank each of you for sharing your insights and and even debating these topics. Before we wrap up, I'd love for each of you to share one final takeaway. What's one, given this entire conversation as a backdrop, what's one piece of advice you'd give to enterprises just beginning their AI journey? Swathi, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think one takeaway I would say, don't start AI for the sake of AI. It has to, if you are providing a service to a customer, the customer shouldn't know that you are using AI, then you are successful. So I believe
Yeah.
at Nationwide, we believe that it's all about augmenting intelligence and helping us do what we do best and providing the best experience to our customer. So I hope you do the same for your customers as well.
Thank you. Murali?
Progress versus perfection. I always say that. So make progress. Don't try to be perfect all the time. But again, at the same time, open to adapt.
Right.
If you have that, you can just make progress.
Makes sense. Cam, what about you?
Yeah, if you're sitting there wondering how you get started, I mean, I think like literally the first step is just go lock yourself in a room with decision makers in the organization,
Or
and
at
I
the
mean it
Wendy's
right
down the
down
street?
or the Wendy's down the street, exactly, and just think of every possible idea. We did that 2 or 3 different times, and the first time it was a little awkward because we're like, okay, so like, what kind of things do we say? And by the end, it literally helped us get over the hump of like how much gray area there is to like, okay, I'm getting a sense of the general kind of themes and areas that we can start talking about. Now we can progress to like thinking of buy versus build, scoping partners, having those
Well
entry
said.
discussions.
Hmm. And what about you, Michael?
So here's the thing. I'm probably going to sound like a broken record, and the thing I'm getting ready to say might be counterintuitive at first, but like AI is not the future of fast food and probably not any of our brands or industries. For me, the future of fast food is great fast food, great service,
Yeah,
and really good experience. AI is a tool that is helping us achieve that and get there. It shows us a new future and a different way to approach that.
love it.
And like for Wendy's, like we're not like just doing the technology for technology's sake. It's about how do we serve the people that are going to be that will benefit from it, our crews and customers. And so that's where the broken record comes in. It's all about the experience, whether you're at a Wendy's at noon or at midnight in Ohio or Utah. It's the experience. It's got to feel seamless, personal, and at the end of the day, Wendy's. And so I think the first thing for everyone is to really find the right thing that's going to make that impact.
Hmm.
For us, it was this specific story and journey. And like I said earlier, Dave invented the modern drive-through, and we stood on his shoulders, and others are following now too. And so, for us, this is just the beginning. But for everyone else, I think the really important thing is to ask, what if I do this? How can I make a difference for my customer? And at the end of the day, like, who are we? Go back to those core principles and values, your legacy, and can this technology help you go back to that or shine even brighter? So
I love it. Thank you, Michael. And I love how this all comes right back to what we were talking earlier about the customer experience and, leveraging AI to solve really hard problems. And again, Swathi, I think you said it best. We're not doing AI for the sake of AI. We're doing it to enhance our business. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Murali. Thank you,
Yeah.
Swathi. Thank you, Cam. This has just been a great conversation. And hey, to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Silicon Heartland Sessions. If you enjoyed this discussion, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. You can find more episodes wherever you listen to podcasts, and be sure to follow us for updates and behind the scenes content. So until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. I'm Sean, and this has been Silicon Heartland Sessions. See you all next time.